Did you get everything you wanted out of the Houston Texans preseason game with the Carolina Panthers? Feels like D'Amico Ryans did. Let's talk about the biggest takeaways presented by my friends at Platinum AC and Heating. My guy Dwayne's the best in the business. Repairs, replacements, simple preventative maintenance. Call Platinum AC and Heating for all your HVAC needs. The Texans take down the Panthers. The score doesn't matter as much, but it's nice when you get a preseason win if you're the Houston Texans. But plenty of big things to take away from this game for the Texans. Let's start with Nick Chubb. This guy right here on your screen has been one of the biggest Nick Chubb critics. Nay, I've been the biggest Nick Chubb critic. He has not looked in practice like a player that is a useful piece to an offense. That all changed in the preseason game against the Carolina Panthers. He was excellent in this game. Chubb looked quick. He looked decisive. He looked agile. He busted people up with his physicality. And look, in practice, he can't run through guys like he can in games. The Texans' defensive line is obviously way better than the Carolina Panthers' defensive line. And the offensive line had a good day. But Chubb, if he can be that hammer, if he can be that physical between the tackles back and win you some short yardage reps and turn 4 yards into 6, turn 3 yards into 5, turn a 2-yard gain into 4 yards because he's that physical, then he absolutely has a role for this team. And when you think about non-Joe Mixon running back composition, you could certainly put together a running back room that includes Nick Chubb being a physically dominant runner between the tackles, Dare Ogunbowale catching the ball out of the backfield, Woody Marks cutting things outside. We'll talk about him here in a moment, but you could see the vision for the best way to use Nick Chubb. It hasn't looked that way in practice, and I know practices are different than games, but he looked much better in this game than he has at pretty much any portion of practice, joint practice, scrimmage, drills, whatever. Chubb looked good. He also had that reception where he just turned around real quick. CJ Stroud found him. I liked that from him. And look, Nick Chubb has every opportunity to be the backup running back for the Houston Texans. RB2 on the depth chart. And of course, we all know if Joe Mixon's injury lingers, then RB2 Nick Chubb becomes RB1 Nick Chubb. The player that we saw in the preseason game is certainly a player that can handle some of those RB1 duties. The player that I've been seeing in practice would make me a little skeptical that he could handle those RB1 duties. How do you balance a couple of good reps in a game versus not having as many good reps in practice? Well, that's up to D'Amico Ryans, Nick Caley, and the Houston Texans staff to go ahead and balance that. But it was nice to see that, especially when you haven't seen that to this point from Nick Chubb. Dameon Pierce has done nothing to this point. He's been hurt, and he hasn't really been out there. He wasn't available in this game for the Houston Texans. So as much as many people would like for Dameon Pierce to get himself into the running back conversation, maybe make himself a factor, Nick Chubb started ahead of him because Nick Chubb was active when training camp started. Dameon Pierce wasn't. Nick Chubb has added to that lead, and this performance in the preseason game was a big step forward into securing running back 2 for the Houston Texans for Nick Chubb. Now, obviously, there's still time, and if Joe Mixon's back, I still don't want to see Nick Chubb on the field. I just want to see Joe Mixon, and then on third down, see Woody Marks. But if Nick Chubb has to be on the field because Joe Mixon's not available, my confidence level went a little bit higher. Still don't feel great about the running backs behind Joe Mixon. The confidence level is just a tiny bit higher for Nick Chubb after watching him be physically impressive in this one when he hadn't been physically impressive in training camp up to this point. You want to talk about being physically impressive? How about the big uglies? And I say that affectionately with the offensive line. Ariante Ursery, the starting left tackle. Laken Tomlinson, the starting left guard. Jake Andrews, the starting center. Ed Ingram, the starting right guard. And Blake Fisher, the starting right tackle, with no Titus Howard available in this one for the Houston Texans. And the big fellas were moving people. Ursery and Andrews both said after the game they felt like the physicality of this offensive line room, the physicality that offensive line coach Cole Popovich wants them to have in the games was present. And it felt that way on the field. This is a Texans defensive line that oftentimes stymies the rushing attack. Not when the Panthers were on the field for defense. This offensive line was moving bodies. They were opening up holes. That 9-yard rush by Nick Chubb, great job by the offensive line. And talking with Andrews after the game, I asked him, could just being more physical than the other team solve some of maybe the issues that would pop up with an offensive line? And he said, hey, anytime you blow the other guys off the line of scrimmage, you're going to have successful plays. Even if you don't get to the second level, get to the linebackers, all that jazz, you're going to be pretty successful if you can knock guys off the line of scrimmage. It's exactly what this offensive line did. I felt like they protected pretty well as well. I think there was maybe a moment here or there that a little bit of pressure got to them, but even in the red zone, I felt like they held up pretty darn good on that third down play where C.J. Stroud got a little uncomfortable, moved around. Ultimately, got counted as a sack against the Texans, but I'd put that as a coverage sack. Nobody got open. Stroud couldn't find anybody. The offensive line did their job on that one. Still trying to determine exactly what that offensive line is going to look like week one. Cam Robinson hasn't practiced since West Virginia when he got hurt. Titus Howard's been in and out of the lineup a little bit. Didn't obviously play in this game. So still got to kind of determine what that tackle situation looks like. I feel pretty good about who the center is. Feels like it's going to be Jake Andrews, left guard, Lincoln Tomlinson. And then if Titus Howard's at right tackle, Ed Ingram at right guard. If Titus Howard's at right guard, then the tackle situation feels like it's going to be Ursary at right tackle, Robinson at left tackle. Cam Robinson did not play in this one either, but like the offensive line, and even saw some good stuff from the second unit on the offensive line. Thomas and Deculus at tackle, Thomas and Scruggs at guard, Patterson at center. Still would love a little bit more earth moving from Jarrett Patterson, but that just may not be totally in his wheelhouse in his game. But even saw some good ones there that really propped up some second unit rushes from Woody Marks. So that was nice to see. And that offensive line, we're all worried about it still. I'm still a little worried about it as well. And they haven't been supercharged, challenged in the pass blocking area just yet. I think Detroit, the joint practice, that's going to be a pretty good test of testing that pass blocking, trying to figure out how to stop old Aiden Hutchinson out there in joint practices. But the offensive line getting a thumb up and a thumb halfway for me. You can't do that. It's thumb up or no thumb up, or you can't do that. That wouldn't make any sense. It's 2 thumbs up from the offensive line in this preseason game. Good job by the offensive line. And I'm not even grading them on a curve. I thought they just had a really good job by that first team offensive line and some decent stuff from the second team offensive line. You know who gets 2 thumbs up from me? Platinum AC and Heating. I needed a new air conditioner earlier this summer. Dwayne and Platinum AC and Heating and his crew knocked that out with ease. It was so fast. Dwayne explained everything to me, and then his crew was here and knocked it out just like that. From repairs to replacements to simple preventative maintenance. But you need to do that on your AC. Make sure it's running well year-round, saving you a little bit of energy, not overworking and putting wear and tear on it. Simple preventive maintenance, repairs, replacements. Platinum AC and Heating does it all. They're a total service company when it comes to HVAC, and Dwayne's the best in the business. Put the number in your phone. When you need an AC guy, you need the AC guy, and that's Dwayne at Platinum AC and Heating. That first team offense led by C.J. Stroud, touchdown on the second drive. And that first drive, I was bummed on 3rd and 2. Couldn't connect with Nico Collins. A little bit of a miscommunication, a replay almost of what happened in West Virginia a couple weeks ago when Stroud just wasn't on the same page with Nico Collins. I got a hunch that 7 and 12 will have that thing squared away before it is all said and done. The regular season gets here, but you saw what you needed to see out of the first teamers on both sides of the football. Starting with offense, obviously, that first drive, you end up having to, end up not connecting on that big play. But the second drive, a nice methodical one. Passes, Nick Chubb runs, go for it on 4th down. Nico Collins, nice and easy in the front of the end zone. And heck, if Stroud hadn't had the ball batted down by the defensive line of the Carolina Panthers, he'd have thrown a touchdown pass to Dare Agumbawale in the front of the end zone on 3rd down. I liked going for it on 4th down, getting the extra rep there in the red zone for this Houston Texans team. Felt like they operated a lot better in the red zone. And the big thing with this first team line, and it goes back to Chubb and the offensive lineman. See how it all kind of builds on itself? They didn't have a bunch of negative plays that put them behind the sticks and it turned into YOLO, throw the ball as far as you can stuff, like we saw a bunch last year. kept the train on the tracks, kept the train on schedule, gave what the defense or took what the defense gave them, made things work. I liked what I saw out of that offense. And, that's a putrid Carolina Panthers defense. So they didn't go out there and take down the 85 Bears, but they took care of their business. On the Texans side of the ball for defense, man, Will Anderson was pissed after that early flag. I felt like it was a bit of an acting job by the offensive player, but I also noticed it in the moment, so I don't hate that call by the official. It wiped away a Derek Stingley interception that was a really fun play, but that just kind of made Will Anderson mad. He ended up with the pressure, was in on a bunch of run stops. That defensive tackle spot was able to get in there. Mario Edwards had a sack early on in this one, and I liked what I saw out of that first team defense. And Bryce Young didn't really have a lot to challenge that first team defense from the Houston Texans, much better than the joint practice from a couple of days ago in the game situation. And that defensive line just really makes things tough. They stuffed the run game of the Carolina Panthers. Of course, the Panthers went to their third quarterback pretty quick in this one. But you like seeing even some of those leftover first team or fringe first team guys still in the game. The defensive line rotates a lot. So you will see Dylan Horton and Darrell Taylor out there a bunch in what would be considered first team situations, even though they're technically second team players. Same with Jalen Smith. You'll see him in some first team situations. Obviously, he had a interception in this one. Got a penalty on special teams, which wasn't great to see, but you saw what you needed to see out of the first team in this one. And for most of the first teamers, Thursday against the Motor City Kitties in that joint practice will kind of serve as their preseason finale. Don't expect a lot of them to play in the game. And finally, we go from the first team to the second team standouts. Woody Marks. How about what he was able to accomplish? One of those run plays where he just kept bouncing things down the line of scrimmage and took it up the field. He is agile. And you got to be agile to be a good pass catching running back. But Woody Marks showcased that he can get outside and win outside. And now, you're starting to put together the running back room. Dare Ogunbowale as your pass protecting guy, maybe catch the ball a little bit. Woody Marks is the guy that can bounce it outside, catch the ball. Nick Chubb run it between the tackles. And, he had a catch in this one. You're starting to put together how that running back room can keep it together until Joe Mixon is there and you can put the ball in his belly a bunch. But really good stuff from Woody Marks. A couple of nice plays from Jawar Jordan as well in this one. Obviously, we talked about Jalen Smith's interception. That was good to see. He was physical on a tackle at one point, stopping a guy short. Irv Smith had a couple of nice catches for Justin Watson in this one. He's battling for a roster spot. Jake Hansen, as a linebacker there in the third quarter, he either tackled or started the tackling situation on a bunch of different run plays from the Carolina Panthers. You like to see that. Jalen Knoll on the punt return. He looked far more dynamic than Braxton Berrios. Now, the situations, the field, the team around them was a little bit different. So you don't want to put too much stock in a couple of reps here and there. And I do know this team trusts Berrios to go out there and be a trustworthy returner and not make any mistakes. But that's just something to kind of pay attention to. Jaden Higgins had a really nice out route where he set the cornerback up and cut outside. That was a really good play early in this one from him. So really good success from a lot of these second unit players. Solomon Byrd got a sack by virtue of Junior Tafuna pushing the pocket. The defensive line really worked together a couple of different times and set up who ultimately was the benefactor on the sack, but good pressure a bunch of different times from that defensive line, even after Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter were out of there. So was happy with that if I'm the Houston Texans. And I really thought that the second unit did some pretty nice things. I know they didn't put a ton of points on the board, but they didn't let things get out of hand. I know Davis Mills had the one kind of hiccup where he couldn't quite corral things, but some good stuff from guys who are going to be depth pieces that might be called upon and pressed into necessary action over the course of the season. You think about a guy like Woody Marks with the running back situation, Jake Hansen with some of the injury history of these linebackers. You start to see how you build that depth. D'Amico Ryans just talked about it 2 off seasons in a row. They want more depth. It feels like they're on their way to finding that depth with this team here, with this training camp and this preseason. What were your big observations? Let me know in the comment section down below on your way down there. Thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Don't forget, myself, Landry Locker, SNL, each and every weekday at 4 p.m. Platinum AC and Heating for all of your air conditioning needs. And I appreciate you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.